Welcome to Mosinata Facilities Management Services Quality, Environment, Safety, and Health Induction. Who is Mosinata Facilities Management Services? Mosinata FMS is the only facilities management specialist in the region with experience of handling large-scale, complex projects. Mosinata FMS is a joint venture of Aspire Zone Foundation and Cushman & Wakefield. Mosinata FMS provides integrated facilities management services in Qatar from inception of build design through the disposal of the property. Quality, environment, health, and safety. Mosinata Facilities Management Services is certified to internationally recognized standards, including ISO 9001 for quality management, ISO 14001 for environmental management, and ISO 45001 for occupational health and safety management. Services delivered. Facilities management, FM, is essential to every customer's overall strategy. It has a direct relationship to the lifespan and cost of any facility, big and small. MFMS currently delivers FM services across a diverse range of properties, including commercial schemes, hospitals, manufacturing plants, sports venues/clubs, and educational facilities. Flagship project, Sports FM, Aspire Zone AZ. Aspire Zone is a global sports destination that brings together the world's best athletes, coaches, and experts to advance human achievement in sport. Since 2007, we have been Aspire Zone's full-time facilities management partner. We deliver the full spectrum of FM services 365 days a year, enabling sports fans around the world to enjoy world-class athletic events at Aspire Zone, including major sporting championships and high-profile international matches. Flagship project, Sports FM, Ministry of Sports and Youth, MSY. The Ministry of Sports and Youth is responsible for Qatar's highest priority sporting infrastructure and has helped propel Qatar to the forefront of the sporting world. That infrastructure includes the country's flagship venues for football, tennis, handball, equestrian, and the MotoGP. Mosinata has been providing essential FM services for Qatar's Ministry of Sports and Youth since 2013, servicing 19 prominent sporting venues and facilities and 23 additional venues around the country. General safety rules. We all intend to keep a good safety reputation. We will visit your work sites on a regular basis. You must ensure that you follow the health and safety policy. You must abide to all health and safety instructions. The Health and Safety Department has the right to stop works. Protect yourself and the public from danger and harm. If you see something dangerous, stop the work and escalate to FM team on site. PPE is mandated across all SFM portfolio task specific. All work, including access, requires a PTW. Do not take unnecessary risks. No smoking policy across SFM sites. We are here to help, support, and educate you on how to work safely. Personal protective equipment, hearing protection, head protection, hand protection, eye protection, face and welding, respiratory protection, fall protection, protective clothing, protective footwear. Objectives. Complete the project with 0 accidents. Achieve this with contribution from each and every individual. Healthy workplace, safe workplace, no injury, no sorrow, no repentance. Our objective, to narrow down the triangle as much as possible. We aim to place you under control and eliminate all unsafe behaviors and conditions to help you go back to your home safe and sound. All of us are responsible for, firstly, ourselves, those working around us, those who are influenced by our behaviors. Safe work practices. Inspect work area daily. Be an observer. Stay alert. Housekeeping. Use your best safety device. Think. If you're not sure, ask someone. Report all injuries, incidents, illnesses. Report safety issues to the HSE department.
One of the worst things that happened to me after my accident was the day they told me I would never be able to walk again. It was horrendous, devastating. If you take risks on site, it might be you next. When you're working up high, it's not worth taking any risks whatsoever, because a couple of seconds later, you could be hurtling towards the floor. Just think, is it worth it? What effect is it going to have on your family? Where's the money going to come from? Do you really want your kids to grow up without a father? That's the reality. Don't take risks. It's just not worth it.
It goes without saying that working at heights is a dangerous business and should be taken very seriously. Now and again, we all have to work at heights, up on scaffolds, on platforms, and working up ladders. But have you ever stopped to think whether you really need to be working at heights? A lot of the time you probably don't. You'd be surprised. Have a think about it next time. If you don't really need to, find another way. Scaffolds and tower scaffolds. You'll see them on just about all of the sites. Putting them together is a big job, and an important one as well. You're best to leave it to those who are qualified. Every work area where you work needs to be safe and completely secure, so it's not worth leaving it to chance. If you're working on a scaffold, check there's a scaff tag that states it's safe before you even set foot on it. If there isn't, ask someone why not. Not just for you, but for your mates as well. You might get away without an accident, but what about the bloke after you? Or the bloke after him? Whatever scaffold you're working on, the platform should have the minimum toe board and 2 handrails. Anything less is not good enough. Let your supervisor know about it right away if it isn't up to scratch. Alterations to any part of the scaffold must only be done by someone who is trained and competent to do so. Same goes for tower scaffolds. Accept nothing less than total safety when you're at work. Ladders are something we probably use all the time, but do we really need to? A lot of the time we reach for the ladder to do work we'd be better off doing some other way, or maybe by someone better qualified for the job. There's no point in putting yourself at risk if you don't have to. If you do use a ladder, make sure you know how to use it correctly. Ask yourself a few questions. Have you made it safe to use? Is it long enough for the task? Do you need someone to help you? It's more than likely some of you have worked on MFMS, or mobile elevated working platforms. If you have, or if you're going to, you must be trained and competent to operate them. One thing you can do is make sure you're using your harness according to the manufacturer's recommendations. It's a simple thing to do, but it can make a big difference. As well as looking out for yourself and your mates, you need to make sure everyone on site is safe, especially when you're working up on a MFMS, where you could be dropping tools or materials over another work area. Your best bet is to make sure you cordon off a work area before you start. On some sites you might work with a safety net. It's another precaution that's taken as a further level of safety, and any extra protection has got to be a good thing. Again, just keep in mind that the net should only be put together by those who are competent. You always see excavations around the sites. They're part and parcel of the work that goes on around the project. Any excavation should be properly protected with barriers and safety observed when working or moving around them. Excavations are potentially very hazardous with severe drops and pits containing rebar and other very dangerous materials. Safety harnesses should be a last resort of protection when working at height, but if you do need to wear a harness, Make sure you've been fully trained. You should do a visual inspection every day with a competent person recording all full inspections every 6 months. If there's an emergency and you've fallen, it's estimated you'll have about 10 to 15 minutes before it becomes life-threatening and the harness begins cutting off your blood supply. You need to act fast but safely if you see someone fall. Make sure you know how to effect a successful rescue plan and move quickly. If you don't know what your rescue plan is, ask your supervisor. Your mate's life might depend on it. Make sure you're happy with every part of your harness and where you're going to be fixing it onto your workplace. Know where your clipping on points are. Are they stable and secure? Working at height kills more people each year in the construction industry than any other workplace accident. So remember, your safety is the #1 priority. It's easy to let a few things slip sometimes. Maybe you thought you didn't need that harness. Maybe you should have asked your mate to help you out with that ladder. It's not just your life you're affecting. It's the life of your family, your mates. Don't take the risk.
Fall protection. Anytime a worker is at a height of 6 feet, 2 meters, or more, the worker is at risk and needs to be protected. Most of the workers are not wearing a full body harness or not wearing the full body harness properly and failed to follow a 100% tie-off. What you can do: equip all your employees who are working at heights with the appropriate fall protection gear that complies with the safety standard and train them on working at height. Scaffolding. The very presence of scaffolding at a job site creates a hazardous work environment. Falls, falling objects, and structure instability are all dangerous possibilities. What you can do: follow established guidelines to help protect your employees who are working on or near scaffolding. Ensure that scaffolding complies with all scaffolding requirements. Only certified scaffolders to erect and competent scaffolding inspector to check, inspect, and tag prior to use. Ladders. A lot of violations involving ladders have been cited, like inappropriate or wrong type of ladder used for the task and using ladders with visible cracks and damages. Ladders come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and materials. No matter the type of ladder, it's important to be in compliance. What you can do: when selecting a ladder, consider the length needed, the ladder's duty rating, and the environment in which the work will be performed. Visual inspection must be conducted prior to use.
Accidents in confined spaces? Maybe if you work in a mine or something. But the work I do is pretty standard. If there were a problem, I'd be able to see it.
Oh, you hear about pipes flooding and gases that'll knock you out, but extra safety precautions take time. Anyway, I've never seen anybody get hurt.
We're well trained, and I'm alert enough to recognize a problem if it develops.
I've worked in this industry for 20 years. None of my men have ever been seriously injured. We're quick enough to handle any kind of trouble.
These people obviously do their jobs well, but their response to the dangers of confined spaces ignores the reality of a potentially deadly hazard. Incidents of confined space injuries or fatalities are disturbingly similar, even though the jobs and job sites vary.
June 1988. A member of a work crew investigating a gas leak is overcome 6 feet underground. His foreman attempts to pull him out and is overcome as well. A passerby calls for help, but before the men can be rescued, 3 firemen suffer from gas inhalation. The workers die of carbon monoxide poisoning shortly after arriving at the hospital. August 1988. A manhole worker collapses 19 feet underground when working in a sewer. A co-worker tries to tie a rope around him and is overcome. A third worker is overcome attempting rescue. By the time the firemen pull the first worker from the hole, he is already dead. Exposure to hydrogen sulfide is suspected.
Every year in North America, hundreds of confined space accidents or fatalities occur in sewers, pipes, excavations, wet wells, and other confined spaces. The bottom line is workers have died in confined spaces, and death comes swiftly, silently, and often without the slightest warning. Why are these spaces so dangerous?
I've been investigating confined space accidents for over 10 years. These spaces are so dangerous because employers and workers don't always understand how they can become so dangerous. I mean, if you don't think they're dangerous, you're not going to take the proper precautions.
Confined spaces can come in a variety of shapes and sizes, but the hazards are all similar.
Normally, outside air contains about 21% oxygen and is necessary to sustain life. Some confined spaces contain 21% oxygen, others do not. Oxygen is invisible and may be used up over time in the confined spaces by things as simple as rust or bacterial growth in slime. Other gases may enter the confined space and displace the oxygen. Operations such as cutting with oxyacetylene or heating will consume oxygen. If the oxygen in the confined space is reduced to 12 to 16%, workers will experience increased pulse and respiration, impaired judgment, and loss of coordination. If the oxygen level is at 6 to 10% or less when the workers enter a confined space, they will experience nausea, vomiting, or loss of consciousness followed by death. Oxygen deficiency is particularly dangerous because it can cause drowsiness or euphoria, which prevents the worker from realizing the danger in time to escape.
We're on the scene of a tragic accident where just about an hour ago, 2 workers were found dead in this sewer. The deaths have been attributed to carbon monoxide poisoning, and officials have indicated that it's possible that the workers didn't follow standard gas testing procedures.
When we arrived at the scene, we found the 2 victims collapsed in the tunnel. My crew went in with full respiration gear, pulled the men out, and tried to resuscitate them, but it was just too late. When we checked for carbon monoxide, it was 4 times safe levels. God only knows what it was when they went in there. No, I don't know why accidents like this happen, but I suspect that the workers just didn't follow proper testing procedures.
Carbon monoxide and hydrogen sulfide are 2 of the most deadly gases found in confined spaces.
Hydrogen sulfide and other toxic gases may enter the confined space from a variety of sources, including sewers, rotting material, chemical leaks or spills, or as a byproduct of work processes. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless. It's produced from the incomplete burning of any carbon-containing material like gasoline, wood, natural gas, and propane, and can be lethal at doses of 1% or less. Hydrogen sulfide is invisible and has an odor like rotten eggs, but at higher concentrations, it may knock out your sense of smell. Death can result in seconds from hydrogen sulfide exposure.
There are so many possible sources for toxic gases that it's impossible to predict the danger without testing.
Last year, My partner and I were repairing leaks on the air release valves in the sewer system. My partner was in the hole, pumping out water. I happened to look in and saw him slumped over.
Sean, are you okay?
1 second he's fine, the next, out like a light. Hey, I'm pretty strong. There's no doubt in my mind I can climb down and pull him up quickly. All I remember is going down the ladder. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in a hospital, and they're telling me my partner's dead. That's how quickly those gases can hit you.
Many gases can permeate confined spaces. Some, like methane, are extremely flammable. A single spark could ignite the air around you into an explosive fireball. There are other contaminants which can exist in confined spaces. They're sometimes the remaining byproduct of an old confined space operation like welding or painting, or they may just seep into the space. But what they all have in common is that they can accumulate to dangerous levels in confined spaces.
What I hear from those workers lucky enough to survive is that wherever they were working, they were fine 1 minute and unconscious the next. The human body is like a sponge for gases. And it doesn't matter how big or strong you are. And in many accidents, when a passerby has the presence of mind to phone for help, it's usually too late. So planning on being rescued is obviously not the solution.
What can be done to prevent these accidents and injuries? Well, it's really quite simple. You develop a standard set of procedures which you follow, and you provide education and training for the workers. Here are the basic principles which you must follow before working in any confined space. The procedures for your particular workplace will be more detailed.
Before entering any confined space, ensure that the surrounding area is free from hazards. Test the atmosphere before you enter a confined space. It's essential that you take samples at various levels throughout the space. The first test to conduct is for oxygen. Oxygen deficiency can occur at any level. Some gases, such as hydrogen sulfide, are heavier than air and could settle on the bottom of the confined space. Methane will displace oxygen. It is an explosive gas and is lighter than air. Carbon monoxide has about the same weight as air, so it can be evenly distributed throughout the space. It's an asphyxiant, which prevents your body from absorbing oxygen, causing you to suffocate. Ensure that the tests are taken by a trained worker, and the results are recorded in a logbook or on an entry permit. If gas levels are unsafe, you must first ventilate and then retest before entering. If the gas levels are within safe limits, you must still ventilate the space before entering. Never use the ventilator like a vacuum to draw air out of the confined space. It may draw in toxic gases from other parts of the space. The fan must blow fresh air into the space. Ventilation will provide a continuous supply of fresh air and prevent the buildup of contaminants. While workers are in the confined space, ensure that there is a worker on watch who can summon a rescue crew in case of emergency or is capable and equipped to conduct a rescue. Depending on the hazardous nature of the work or type of confined space, more sophisticated equipment and procedures may need to be used. For instance, workers may need to use a harness or lifeline attached to a tripod and wear a continuous gas monitor. There are even situations where a worker may have to wear a self-contained breathing apparatus. In summary, ensure the surrounding area is free of hazards. Test the atmosphere inside the confined space. Ventilate the confined space. And finally, ensure that a man watch has been initiated and emergency procedures have been established.
Confined spaces can be found on many work sites, but their hazards may not be obvious. Preparation and testing are your only defenses against this potential killer. The danger is real, but by following established work procedures, most confined space tragedies can be prevented.
Lockout tagout. Most of the violations of LODO cited on sites are 1. Not following LODO procedures, 2. No training given to workers, and 3. Failure to follow the sequential flow of the LODO application. These violations included not only electrical but also gravity, pneumatic, and any other energy level used. What you can do: follow proper lockout tagout procedures, get the products needed to help prevent the accidental startup of your machinery, and ensure that you lock, tag, and try before you commence work. Electrical wiring. It only takes 50 milliamperes to cause death. It is important to realize that an electrical shock may not be strong enough to cause a fatality, but it could cause you to fall or jolt to dangerous surroundings. What you can do: to help avoid wiring violations, make sure to inspect wiring and insulation. Also, you should be taking the extra steps to ensure your electrical equipment is properly grounded. Proper cable management must be followed to ensure cables are well arranged and away from any possible damage. Cable must be hanged or buried to prevent tripping hazards. Temporary electrical connections. Across the country, some sites would be deemed unsafe because the electrician or electrical contractor did not install adequate temporary wiring, use equipment in good working order, or take precautions to protect the wiring and equipment being installed. What you can do: any electrical installation, whether it is permanent or temporary, should be installed according to all applicable codes, standards, and regulations.
Fire extinguisher using the pass method. Now, it's important to note that if a fire does occur in your workplace, that you follow these 3 important steps. Step 1. Once you've seen the fire, first grab the closest fire extinguisher, ensuring it's the correct type and class appropriate to extinguish the fire, and always make sure to keep your back to an unobstructed exit. If you do not think that you can put out the fire safely, make sure to evacuate the building. Step 2. Once you have your fire extinguisher, stand 6 to 8 feet away from the fire. Step 3. Follow the PASS 4-step procedure. First is P for pull. Pulling the pin unlocks the operating lever and allows you to discharge the extinguisher. Next is A for aim. Make sure to aim the extinguisher nozzle or hose at the base of the fire. The first S is squeeze. Squeeze the lever. This discharges the extinguishing agent. Releasing the lever will stop the discharge. The second S is for sweep. While discharging the extinguisher, start moving towards the fire. Keep the extinguisher aimed at the base of the fire and sweep back and forth until the flames appear to be out. Once the fire has been extinguished, make sure to watch the fire area. If the fire reignites, repeat the process. Always remember that smoke generated from the fire can be harmful and even fatal. Never attempt to extinguish a fire unless it is safe to do so. Now to recap the PASS 4-step procedure. P is for pull the pin. A is for aim the nozzle. The first S is for squeeze the lever. And the second S is for sweep. At Grand River...
Emergency instructions and first aid. In case of emergency: fire, explosion, natural disasters, terrorism, accidents are all emergency events. It is your responsibility to familiarize yourselves with all assembly points. When emergency signal is heard, all works must be stopped. All ignition sources must be stopped and insulated. emergency situation, and first aid. First aid must be applied by certified personnel. Slight injuries can be treated in first aid station. If severe injuries occur, injured person will be transported to the hospital by ambulance as soon as possible. Familiarize yourselves with emergency contact numbers help desk 443-08600 or ambulance paramedic services 999. Near misreporting. Definition. Simply put, a close call, where the individuals are involved, not injured, but may have resulted in damage to property and equipment, and if not attended to and corrected in a timely manner, more than likely will result in one or more of your employees being injured, possible severely, or acquiring an illness from its cause. What is Safe 365? Safe 365 is a concept that encourages thinking and acting safely at home, work, and any other place. It is a 24/7 safety consciousness strategy that enhances behavioral-based safety and encourages intervening in others' unsafe acts and practices. What should we do? Act safely at all times. Don't look away from unsafe acts. Intervene. Look around for unsafe conditions. Report unsafe conditions promptly. Talk to colleagues and others about Safe 365. Benefits of Safe 365. Improves individual consciousness of acting safely at all time. Encourages taking responsibility for others' safety. Promotes safer workplace and safer living. Ensures ownership of safe and healthy living of participant. Safer workplace for all.
Your job is a dangerous place, but you already know that. That's why you come prepared with hard hats, goggles, respirators, or other necessary safety gear. With all this equipment, you still might have ignored one of the most commonly overlooked safety measures. You might not be safeguarded against heat stress and dehydration. Steady exposure to heat causes you to dehydrate, and dehydration can be a killer. Of course, losing the safety gear isn't an option, but keeping yourself hydrated with a regular rotation of water and electrolytes can counter the dangerous effects of heat stress, and that can save your life. In order to fight heat stress, first you need to know what you're up against. Workers who are exposed to extreme heat or work in hot environments run the risk of heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. These symptoms are bad enough on their own, but when you work in hazardous environments or with heavy equipment, then it becomes even more dangerous. How many accidents on the job can be traced back to dehydration? When you're dehydrated, your judgment skills and your reflexes suffer for it. Even something as simple as scaling a ladder becomes difficult when you're feeling fatigue, nausea, dizziness, or muscle spasms. Proper hydration may be the only thing between you and an accident that leaves you injured, paralyzed, or worse. Before you even start your day, ask yourself, how much rest did you get? How many diuretics and dehydrants have you had, like coffee and soda? What color is your urine? Seriously, the clearer, the better. This is a good indicator of what your starting level of hydration is, and no matter what, you should systematically consume a cycle of fluids and electrolytes throughout the day. Never wait until you're thirsty to get a drink. Remember, your body is always working, even at rest, and no matter what season it is. Dehydration is more common in the summer, but it can also hit you during cooler months, when water and electrolyte intake is often neglected. Make sure that you always monitor your physical condition. Wear breathable clothing when possible. Schedule heavy work during the coolest parts of the day when possible. Take more breaks in extreme heat and humidity. Avoid drinks with caffeine, alcohol, and large amounts of sugar. And always be sure you're getting enough fluids and electrolyte replenishment. Remember, thirst alone won't tell you when you're dehydrated, but by adding water and electrolyte replacement drinks to your safety gear, you can stop dehydration in its tracks before it ever happens.
Club car safety. When riding a club car, follow the instruction outlined below. No one is permitted to drive a club car unless they have had site-specific training and completed all documentation. Number of passengers, front seat, 2 only of which is the driver. Rear, if additional seats are provided, 2 only. Passengers are not allowed to sit in the cargo hold to the rear of a club car. Items in the cargo hold of a club car are not to exceed the load capacity and or extend beyond the rear of the club car. Brake gently, turn slowly. Passengers must hold onto the handrails. When sitting inside buggy, the whole body must be within the club car frame. Do not drive whilst using a mobile phone. No smoking inside the club car. Lights to on at all times. Drive with due care and attention. Sustainability and waste management. Mosinada aims to follow the 5RS waste management hierarchy: reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, and manage residual waste generated across its facilities. As part of the Qatar Sustainability Week 2021, Mosinada has introduced battery recycling across all of its offices. All staff are expected to use the battery collection bowls in their offices to drop AA and AAA batteries for recycling. Batteries from homes can also be dropped into these bowls. E-waste generated across Mosinada is handed over to the IT department. This accumulated e-waste is sent for recycling annually. All facilities managed by Mosinada have systems in place to collect and recycle paper and cardboard waste through a third-party recycler. Segregation of organic and plastic waste generated in the facilities is highly emphasized. This waste is recycled through third-party recyclers. Spot the difference. Work safe. Go home safely.